story I'm going to read to you today is Esmeralda the Ragdoll. At the back of the toy cupboard on a dark and dusty shelf lay Esmeralda the Ragdoll. She lay on her back and stared at the shelf above, as she had done for a very long time. It seemed to Esmeralda that it was many years since she had been lifted up by her owner, Clara, and even longer since she had been out of the playroom with the other toys. Now her lovely yellow hair was all tangled and her beautiful blue dress was creased, torn and faded. Each time Clara opened the toy cupboard door, Esmeralda hoped very much that she would be chosen, but Clara always played with the newer toys at the front of the cupboard. Every time Clara put her toys back in the cupboard, Esmeralda felt herself being pushed further towards the back. It was very uncomfortable, and indeed, Esmeralda might have suffocated if it wasn't for the hole at the back of the cupboard, which enabled her to breathe. These days Esmeralda felt very lonely. Until recently, a one-eyed teddy bear had been beside her on the shelf. Then one day he had fallen through the hole at the back of the cupboard and was never seen again. Esmeralda missed him dreadfully, for he had been a lovely old teddy with a gentle nature. Now she too could feel herself being pushed towards the hole. She felt a mixture of excitement and fright at the prospect of falling through it. Sometimes she imagined that she would land on a soft feather bed belonging to the little girl who would really love her. And other times she thought that the hole led to a terrifying land of monsters. One day Esmeralda heard Clara's mother say, "Now Clara, today you must tidy up the toy cupboard and clear out all those old toys you no longer play with." Esmeralda could see Clara's small hands reaching into the cupboard. She couldn't bear the thought of being picked up by the little girl and then discarded. "There's only one thing to do," she said to herself. She wriggled towards the hole, closed her eyes and jumped. Esmeralda felt herself falling, and then she landed with a bump on something soft. "Watch out, my dear," said a familiar voice from underneath her. Esmeralda opened her eyes and saw that she landed on the one-eyed teddy. The two toys were so overjoyed to see each other again that they hugged one another. "What shall we do now?" cried Esmeralda. "I have an idea," said the Ted. "There's a rusty old toy car over there. I wanted to escape in it, but I can't drive with only one eye. What do you think? Shall I give it a go?" "Yes, yes!" Esmeralda exclaimed, climbing into the driver's seat. By now, One-Eyed Ted had found the key and was winding up the car. "Away we go!" he called as they sped off. "Where are we going?" shouted Esmeralda. "To the seaside," replied Ted. "Which way is it?" asked Esmeralda, holding on to her yellow hair streaming behind her in the wind. "I don't know. We'll have to ask the way," said Ted. Rounding a bend they came across a black cat crossing the road. "Excuse me," called Ted. "Could you tell us the way to the seaside?" Now, as you know, cats hate water. "Whatever do you want to go near water for? Why would I help you?" thought the cat. "It's the other side of the mountain," he growled, and then ran off. On sped the rusty car, and up the mountainside they went until they reached the top of the mountain. They met a sheep. Now, as you know, sheep never listen properly. "Excuse me," said Esmeralda. "Where can we find the beach?" Well, the silly sheep thought Esmeralda was asking where they could find a beach. "Down there, in the orchard in the valley." Esmeralda and Ted leaped back in the car and sped off down the mountainside, but when they reached the orchard there was no sign of water. Of course, just a lot of peach trees. Once again they scratched their heads in puzzlement. Just then a mole popped its head out of the earth. "Excuse me," said Ted, "would you happen to know where we could find the seaside?" Now, the mole was very wise, but unfortunately he was also, as you know, very short-sighted. He peered at Esmeralda's blue dress. "That patch of blue must surely be a river, and rivers run into the sea," he thought. "Just follow that river," he said, "and you'll end up at the seaside. Good day!" And with that he disappeared under the ground again. Esmeralda and Ted looked even more puzzled, for there was no sign of a river in the orchard. "Oh well," sighed Esmeralda. "Perhaps we'll never find the seaside." "Don't give up," said Ted. "Surely we'll find the end." They climbed up back into the rusty car and set off again. After a short while, the car started to splutter, and then it came to a complete halt at the side of the road. "What shall we do now?" cried Esmeralda. "We'll just have to wait here and see what happens." And Ted got back into the car and tried to start it again, but it wouldn't work. It seemed like a very long time that they sat at the side of the road, and at last they heard footsteps, and then Esmeralda felt herself being picked up. "Look, it's a dear old tatty rag doll," said a voice. Esmeralda looked up and saw she'd been carried by an old little girl. Ted and the rusty car had been picked up by the girl's father. "We will take them home and look after them," the man said. Now they were in a real car, and long before the toys found themselves in a house, the girl carried Esmeralda, One-Eyed Ted, and the rusty car upstairs into her bedroom and put them down on the windowsill. "I'll be back soon," she whispered. Esmeralda looked out of the window and nearly danced with joy. "Look, look, Ted," she shouted, for out the window she could see a road, and beyond the road was a beach and then the sea. "We reached the seaside after all," she cried. Esmeralda, Ted, and the rusty car lived happily in the house beside the sea. Esmeralda's hair was brushed and plaited, and she was given a beautiful new dress. And Ted had a new eye sewn on, and he could see properly again. The rusty old car was painted and oiled, and most days the little girl took her new toys down to the beach to play with them, and the days in the dark toy cupboard were soon forgotten. The little girl used to tell her friends the story of how she had found her 3 best toys lying beside the road one day. And as for the toys, well, they sometimes talked about that strange day when they had had such an adventure, and they'd all burst out laughing.